Hi guys, welcome back to Planet Mithril. My name is Mithril, and today I'm bringing you my take on how to paint one of my favourite characters in the Marvel Universe. That's right, Rocket Raccoon. Teeny tiny model packed with personality and packing an even bigger gun, just as he always should be. I'll be detailing how to create authentic looking fur, as well as bringing the vibrancy to his jumpsuit and the Hadron Enforcer to give you a raccoon that is sure to cause havoc on the tabletop. Man, I love Rocket. I'll be working my Rocket off a grey undercoat which I have applied prior to painting using Citadel Mechanica Standard Grey. Brush is ready guys, let's get painting. The bulk of Rocket's fur I'm base coating using Arbuckle's Brown, and leaving the centre of his face and some striped segmentation over the tail for the lighter colours later on. Some of the face fur and the centre segment of the tail now I'm base coating with a 1-to-1 mix of petroleum grey and black. The rest of his face fur and the tip of the tail I'm now base coating using rainy grey. I'm base coating Rocket's jumpsuit now using orange leather. This will need a few thin coats for a nice solid finish. His gloves and jumpsuit ribbing I'm picking out carefully using petroleum grey. Any metallic details over the gun, his backpack and any other metals now I'm base coating using thrash metal. Creating a little subtle differentiation over the metallics by painting the gun muzzle using black metal rather than thrash metal. Finally, the main casing of the Hadron Enforcer I'm base coating using Sahara Yellow. Again, a few thin coats will be needed to give it a nice smooth finish. Now it's super important to create as much texture over Rocket's fur as possible to make him look as authentic as you possibly can. I'm starting by applying a blocking layer to his musculature with a 1-to-1 mix of Arbuckle's Brown and Dubai Brown. leaving the Arbuckle's base showing in the recessed grooves as best I can. I'm applying a recessed shade now to his darker brown fur with a 1-to-1 mix of Arbuckle's brown and black. A wash would also work here, but I'm trying to be a little bit more targeted and keep the upper tone of the blocking fur layer intact. I'm now building up the upper tone of Rocket's brown fur using pure Dubai brown. You can see how I'm feathering this lightly over the model, trying to catch as much of the sculpted fur detail as I can without being too heavy-handed in the process. Continuing to build up the lighter tones of these browns now by adding Iroko into the Dubai brown at a rough 2-to-1 mix. You can see how my application is drawn more towards the tips and edges of the sculpted fur detail to give an authentic transition from the shadow through to the lighter areas. Take your time here, the more careful and targeted you can be, the better his fur will look overall. By now you should start seeing that look of his fur really start coming to shine through. For the final highlight stages, I'm adding in small amounts of Mojave White into the previous mix, and again, just lightly feathering this over the tips and more prominent bits of fur to really give a sleek, glossy Raccoon coat some sheen. You see that with how just a little bit of effort you can really bring out the best detail in even the smallest sculpts. Now to tackle the other fur areas to really bring this lovable trash powder to life. Now I'm not going to be detailing the actual application as much during this stage, as it's basically applied the same way that the normal brown fur was originally, so just continue your application method through that for the following fur layers. A layer using a 2-to-1 mix of rainy grey and white is being applied to the all-white fur. This can be challenging over the snout as it's slightly awkward shape comparatively. Building slowly up to a highlight using pure white over the tips and more prominent areas of fur. The darker grey areas of fur I'm now layering up with a 2-to-1 mix of graphene grey and white. Adding more white into the mix until I again reach a highlight using pure white to make the tips pop. His little tongue I'm carefully picking out using pink flesh. then giving this a quick highlight using basic flesh. His claws, teeth and his eye recesses I'm painting in black. The claws are then getting a layer using Mojave white. And finally a dot highlight using pure white, as well as applying 2 dots into the eyes to finish them off. Okay, now it's time to tackle these bolder, more vibrant colours, which are really going to contrast well with the tone and realism of Rocket's fur. The creases and shadows of the jumpsuit are getting a shade using brown leather, slightly diluted just to help me manoeuvre the paint where I want it to go. I'm now building up the tone of the jumpsuit by applying a layer with a 1-to-1 mix of orange leather and Mars orange, leaving the brown leather showing in the recesses to create some natural shadow. A second layer is being applied now using pure Mars orange. You can see how I'm building up the shape and texture of the jumpsuit, defining the folds and creases to give a sense of realistic movement over the material. The first highlight is being applied by adding Marduck yellow into the Mars orange. I would advise a rough 2-to-1 ratio split between the two paints, but feel free to add more or less depending on how vibrant you want these orange highlights to be. For the final few highlights, I'm adding in white sands to the overall mix. For these stages, you can see I'm just trying to define and highlight the edges and most prominent creases of material with careful, precise application. The ribbing lining is being layered over using a 2-to-1 mix of petroleum grey and white. Followed by another layer, this time using a 2-to-1 mix in favour of the white. And finished off with a highlight using pure white. I'm carefully inlaying a shade to the grooves between the gun panelling using Dubai Brown, being super careful here not to bleed out onto the yellow panelling itself. The casing is now being framed using an edge layer of 10-year yellow. And followed by a final edge highlight using Lilith Yellow. Nice, solid, crisp lines. All the metalwork over the gun and rocket itself is being shaded using Citadel Null Oil. Once this is dry, I'm relayering over all the metals now using Thrash Metal, leaving the null showing in the recesses. And finally, again being edge highlighted, this time using Speed Metal just to define the sharpest and harshest lines over the metal. The inner glow of the gun I'm very carefully picking out using Adriatic Blue. This area is now being layered with a 1-to-1 mix of Adriatic Blue and white. And finally dot highlighted using pure white. What ferocity and cunning in such a small model. Rocket Raccoon and his huge Hadron Enforcer are now ready to help guard the galaxy. Now I do have a recipe for Groot's limb that Rocket is perched upon, but I'll be covering this in my How to Paint Groot tutorial dropping in the next few days. This video is long enough already. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. I'm really glad to get Rocket out on the channel. He's one of my favourite characters from Marvel, and I hope I've managed to do the model justice. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and for anyone who wants to help support my unhealthy addiction to Palo Bridge flesh, you can support the channel over on Patreon for as little as £1 a month. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you for supporting the channel. Take care, and as always, happy hobbying. Bye guys.